Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And today's episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, optimize, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and scale. And today's guest is Amy Kemp. Hi, Amy.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. We're going to have a great conversation about scaling, systems, boundaries, mindset, and how it all aligns and work together, which is, I'm very excited about this conversation. But first of all, let me introduce you with your bio. So you are the owner and CEO of Amy Kemp, Inc. And in your work within this growing company, you help leaders and business professionals understand how deeply thought habits impact every part of their work and lives.
Yes, I do.
Again, Amy, welcome to this podcast. And you have a very specific target of entrepreneurs, professionals that you work with. So why don't you describe that to our listeners? And again, it doesn't exclude anyone because our listeners can learn from you and what you're doing. But let's first of all start with, who is your ideal client that you love working with?
I love this question because I think the fear is always the exclusion of people. And yet there is a particular person I think that every business serves. And the more you know that person, the more your business thrives. And so my person is a woman who is highly educated. She usually has like a big title or a big degree or a big role within her organization. She's very intelligent, sometimes in different ways, but has like a mastery level of her particular chosen field. She often has an effect on people where one of my clients named it this funny word. We call it shiny squintyitis, where it's like she shines so brightly that people kind of like, they're not sure. They kind of squint and pull back sometimes when she shows up with the fullness of who she is. It can be a little intimidating or a little bit off-putting for people, not because she's being too much, but just because of who she is. It's so powerful, I guess, and it can kind of create this where she'll downplay herself in social settings because she knows that she has that impact. So that's kind of my person. Typically, I'm meeting her at a point in her journey where she wants more income or influence or impact, but without more work. So
we all want that, right? I mean, that is the dream. Yeah. So Amy, you definitely fit, probably you are one of those women, right, that you are working with. So tell us a little bit about your story. I'm always interested in people's stories and how did you get to where you're at right now?
Well, it's so funny because the other characteristic that I left out of my ideal client is that when I read the characteristics, she will say, "Ooh, I'm not totally sure I'm her." It's this very funny thing. And she'll like exclude herself because, oh, I don't meet every single criteria, or I'm not as whatever as this person. And so when you even say that to me, I'm always like, whoa, yeah. I am, but you want to do these.
Sure.
Anyhow, but I do believe that's who I am at my core, and that's why I attract those women to the work that I do. So the quickest version of my story, I originally was an English teacher. I thought I would be a professor at the college level, but found in a Marxist literary theory class one day that the depth of the study, I was more interested in the people than the academia. And so kind of shifted gears. I was a teacher for a very short period of time and then worked in sales and really moved my way into a sales leadership position where I was leading thousands of people and really always fell in love with and really thrived when I was developing people within those businesses. The company that I'm working within now, Amy Kemp Inc., I accidentally started 9 years ago. I had no thoughts of creating a new company or
So
business.
how do you accidentally start a
I
company?
know. So I know my person. And these women that I knew in my life were continuing to come to me and talk to me about feeling isolated, feeling alone, not knowing, not having great friendship in their life, not being connected. And I thought, if I could get these women together, something really magical could happen. And so, long story short, I just thought, I'll just scratch this itch and start a group. I'll do a group with, like, on the side with 8 women. And it grew so fast. People were so hungry for the work that I was doing, the impact it was having on their careers and their businesses and their income, and mostly the quality of their lives. And so for the last 7 years now, this has been my full-time work.
That is incredible. And you bring out a great point where people need their tribe, right? They need their groups. So when
Yeah.
you find yourself with like-minded individuals, you do really well, even if you don't learn anything, but you just spend time together sharing
Oh,
experiences and figure things out. You
mhm.
feel much better because you feel you're not alone. Have you experienced that?
Yeah, and it's funny you're saying this today because multiple times in the last couple of days, I've had this experience that we are created to create in community. And when you're stuck on creating something, whatever that something is, the inclination can be to kind of like go within and try to figure it out. But the fastest way to create the solution or the next step or the growth you're longing for or the new opportunity you're looking for is by reaching out, by asking questions, by connecting with other people. You'll find that the creation happens way more quickly. I was stuck on this idea. It was like an offering that I've been crafting in my head, and I had coffee with someone, just kind of a getting to know you coffee. And through our conversation, I landed on clear. It was like I landed the plane of the idea. Like I couldn't land it, but through that conversation, somehow I got to it. And then
Yeah.
I got home, and it was like, boom, 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 boom. And it was full, like in 48 hours. But I couldn't have done it alone in my office. I had to like be interacting with people to like get it out of me somehow. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I experienced that as well. You gotta have that, and that's why belonging to organizations where you have like-minded individuals, and what is really good about what you're doing is that you identify exactly who they are. So that way, if you want to be part of this group that
Yep.
matches who your ideal person is, then that's the group for you. And of course, for our listeners that might not be in that group, it doesn't matter. You can find your own group, but it is so important to have that because it can be lonely at the top when you're running a company, when you're an entrepreneur, you're just by yourself and you need that support group.
Also, everything I've created wasn't created because I had the idea first. It was created in response to what the person I serve needs. And
Right.
so when you're running any kind of business, knowing who that person is intimately and really being able to describe them unapologetically is so vital because you can then ask the question, is this in service of the person that I serve? And if
Right.
it's not, then it's a no. But if it is, then it's like, let's go, right? So every
Right.
part of the business evolved not because I had a new idea out of the ether. It evolved because I was talking to these people who I just adore and like love being with that I get to hold space for. And I saw a need and I was able to like name it and then create a solution for that need. So,
Yeah, and that is key. I mean, that's key for that successful marketing. You got to figure out, you got to see what the need is and then fulfill it.
yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're all about systems and
Mhm.
processes, and it's, yeah, we create and document the processes, but really what we do is we give business owners the freedom to create on their business, because then the business doesn't depend on them and they don't need to work the 80-hour week. They feel confident that they can pass it on to somebody, and they also can put their heads in, the knowledge is not in their heads anymore, but they are actually can give it to somebody else, whether automating it or giving it to somebody or delegating, and you create that feeling of stability and certainty. I know you talk a lot about systems, structure, scaling. So you emphasize structure and boundaries,
Yeah.
right? So why do so many leaders resist structures even when they desperately need it?
Okay, I love this topic. There's a chapter in my book called Surrender to Structure. Um, this is a very common entrepreneurial habit of thinking to resist structure. So let me explain why. Part of what, and when I say entrepreneurial habit of thinking, I want to be clear. You can be employed and be an entrepreneurial thinker. There are a lot of roles within companies that are more entrepreneurial. So it doesn't mean you own your own business necessarily, though I see it a lot with people who
Well, you
do.
have the ownership mentality. Yes. I mean, that's
And
exactly right. Yeah.
you,
You can be a C-suite executive like
oh,
what you identified, and you can have that, systems, or because we see it too. We go into
yeah.
companies, and we have people that will resist processes or structure because they feel it like it will stifle their creativity.
Yes. And what they're missing is, so okay, let me give you an example. When you embrace structure, it's actually the pathway to freedom, not a restrictive cage. The example that I can give you is like, for example, in our health, taking care of our human bodies, there are structures that we embrace along the way that create a healthy outcome, right? And every healthy relationship we have has structure built into it that provides a healthy relationship, right? It's the pathway to that healthy relationship. You know, what you eat, how you move your body, your rest, all the things that we know, right? What happens is on the extreme of the structure spectrum is if you ignore structure for long enough, it will impose itself upon you. So in the health example, if you ignore those structures for long enough, not only will you not have freedom, you will
Mm-hmm.
be restricted to the nth degree where you're in a hospital bed and someone is coming every hour to check on you. The structure is being imposed upon you, right?
That's a very
So
good example. Yeah.
and again, obviously, there are reasons you end up in the hospital that are not that, but you understand the analogy of it, where it's like we want to avoid the structure because we want the freedom, but the avoiding the structure actually typically ends up causing us to be like in situations where structure is imposed upon us, right?
Right. So it's like I say, well, I don't want to be healthy. I'm not going to eat on time. I'm not going to sleep enough. I'm not going to exercise. I don't want that structure. Well, then you're
You're going to
right.
get
You end up
sick.
in that situation. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the same thing with money, right? I just want to have freedom. I don't want to embrace any kind of structure around the money, blah, blah, blah. But then what happens is you end up in situations where either someone else is determining exactly how much you get paid and it's not what you want. I mean, obviously, there's like the worst case scenario of where someone is actually giving you money because you can't support yourself, right? But like that's the extremes of it.
Right.
But
Right.
here's the thing, when you are an entrepreneur, part of what, or you think like one, part of what makes you really great is that you don't just say yes to things that are inefficient. You're constantly like, does that make sense? Is that the best way to do it? Is that, and so you're in this habit of thinking of questioning the structure that's in place to make sure that it's like the best way to do it, right? And that's a
Mhm.
gift, right? The problem is, so you're resistant to structure imposed on you by outside forces, particularly when it's like, we're going to create this new system and it's going to solve all of your problems. And it's forced, it's mandated. You're like,
Yeah.
no, it's not. You don't even know what I'm doing, and you're forcing this upon me. So, okay, the problem is you become your own boss And then you're the one who's giving the orders, who's imposing the structures. But for all this time, you've been practicing this habit of thinking that's resistant to structure. And so you'll resist your own structures. So I'll give you a silly example, but it's on my desk right in front of me. I teach a tool to my clients called the 6 most important things list. It's that before the end of the day, I make a list of the 6 most important things that need to get done the next day. And then that's what I'm working from throughout my day. Super simple. But I'm so cool and branded that I actually have a sheet that you can download, like that is my brand. And it's like the sheet with the 6 most important things list on it. Well, I have this habit of thinking so strong. It's my sheet. I created it. That today I was like, no, I'm not writing my list on that. So I like wrote it over here on this random piece of paper. Right? But it's like, why would I not just write it on the sheet? Because it's that habit of thinking in me that makes me want to like resist it, right? It's just like, well, I don't have to if I don't want to. I can do what I want. So I try to give myself outlets that are harmless, like that one. Like, does it matter if I write it on a little pink piece of paper or no? So when it's like that, if the thing is getting done, I give myself freedom to like buck it because it gives me like a little rebellious, like
Right.
hit, you know? But where
Which
I
is okay to do from time to time.
totally, but the problem is you can't do that in some of these real key things without it having a negative impact on your work.
Absolutely. So you've seen that line of thought of like, systems can stifle my creativity or can affect me, right? So what do you say to your clients when you hear that?
Yeah, all creative enterprise happens within structure. People think artists are just out there like willy-nilly carving Michelangelo. But even no, creating David, sorry. Michelangelo had very, very rigid systems and structure that he used to create David. He had a small version of the statue in water and he was lowering the level of the water. His tools were like very organized in how they were, like, there was a process to one of the great creative works of humanity that we know about, right? That did not happen in a vacuum. Even the structure, like we say, oh, I want freedom, but it's like if we didn't have gravity holding us down, right? Like gravity is a structure that holds us in place. That's what gives us, it's the pathway to the freedom you're longing for. The thing you want is typically on the other side of your resistance to structure.
Right. So, Amy, we did a survey of hundreds of entrepreneurs and we asked them, what is the number one thing that you enjoy most about being a business owner? Why do you want to be a business owner? And they said it's freedom. That's what they want. They want that freedom.
Totally.
We all want it. So what are some practical ways that you see with the clients that you work with that helps them achieve that freedom that they want so much, like actual things that they are doing? Let's leave aside the mindset. Let's just really look at like what are some of the things that they can do practically and physically to achieve that freedom.
Yeah. One thing I will tell you is in areas where you resist the structure most, you must have rest from the structure. I think people have an unrealistic expectation that they're going to create a structure and do it every day perfectly and never take a break from it. So, like I have a morning routine that I follow, which I think it's like the time where I receive, you know. And I think people assume I do that every day at the same time, and I never miss a day, and I do every component of it perfectly, right? When in actuality, I probably do it 3, maybe 4 times a week, maybe. And I have a lot of rest from it. Now, I've done it for years, but I don't get really rigid with it and I don't expect perfection. So I think that's a concrete thing, is this idea that you should do it, even my 6 most important things list, maybe 3 days a week I get there, but like yesterday I had an out of town meeting. There was no list made. I mean, it's very imperfect, but I go back to it. I go back to it. I go back to it. So they have an unrealistic expectation that it's going to be perfect and I'm going to do it perfectly every day, or I'm going to chuck the whole thing. I think that's part of it.
So I think it's really what you're saying is celebrating the success and the wins. When you do that, celebrate it. And when you don't be hard on yourself. Just figure out what, did it work for me? I mean, maybe I want to get it back in. How do I do that? So just like relax. Don't be like.
Yeah, it's not like if I miss it for a couple of days, I'm all stressed out. I'm just like, okay, I really am gonna do it tomorrow. I'm gonna just gonna pick it up where I left off. There's also just this thing I've observed, and I write about this in this chapter in my book also, that the areas where we resist structure most, if on the beach when they have those metal detectors and they're walking along and then it's like beep, 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 and then you dig down and there's either a can or there's something valuable. In the areas where you resist structure most, if you dig down right there below it, there's typically unhealed pain. So, as an example, in my business experience, I had some difficult years around money in the early years of entrepreneurship and business building. I have a lot of resistance to structure around money. And so, in those areas, I think of it like going through the TSA pre-check or the TSA line at the airport, where I go slower when I'm embracing structure in those areas. Like, I'm more intentional. I bring in a team to support me the higher risk I am. So I'm at high risk in that area of bucking structure. So I have a team, like my assistant is doing this. I'm checking in with this person. I have accountability over here. Like, I have people around me holding me accountable to the structure. I also just really, truly pay attention and don't force myself, or like, I'm not pushing through. I'm more approaching it with curiosity. I'm feeling like I don't want to follow my own structure on this. I want to buck the budget. Like, okay, then instead of doing that in a moment of like, give myself an overnight, like slow down, don't make the decision today, and really be intentional about the decision, because I know I'm at high risk in that area of like bucking the structure if I'm not very intentional and careful. So it's also just self-awareness and having those things around you. But people will say like, oh, you're so disciplined, and I'm also really accountable. Like, people know if I don't follow it, right? There are people holding me to that structure also when I want to buck it.
That is exactly right. So you have those activities that you're doing, and obviously also figuring out what are the barriers and the stops that led you to begin with that behavior is very important. And there are solutions for that, but we are going to leave that for another conversation.
Yeah.
And you are definitely describing the importance of having that structure, but still keep your creativity intact. And I think that's very important, that we see it day in and day out with entrepreneurs. So, Amy, if people want to learn more, find out more about you, read your book, how can they do that?
Yeah. So very simply, my website is the easiest place to find me. It's my name, amykemp.com. You can order the book there, but you also can get the book anywhere you order books. It's on Audible as well. It's in my voice. And I think that chapter would be particularly meaningful to your listeners, the Surrender to Structure chapter, if this is a topic that they're really honing in on. But yeah, they can learn all about the work I do and the resources that are available there on my website.
Fantastic. Well, Amy, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, Adi.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.